Our next speaker is someone who is unbelievably brilliant. Ambassador Yoram Ettinger has an encyclopedic knowledge of not only Jewish history, Israeli history, but American history. His rapier-sharp intellect has informed me. He has been a mentor and a role model to myself and to Buddy. He has certainly taught me that Israel's security and survival is really, really on the tip of the spear, and that all of Western civilization and America's security and survival are dependent on Israel. Yoram Ettinger is known and loved throughout the halls of Congress. He's known and loved throughout the media, in both print and visual media. He is known and loved in the Knesset and in many, 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 many news channels and in many parliaments throughout the world. It is my supreme honor and privilege to introduce you to a wonderful, wonderful, brilliant analyst, profound thinker, and wonderful role model, Ambassador Yoram Ettinger.
Thank you very much. It's my honor to be part of this annual event, especially when sponsored by Emet and led by Sarah. And here we are, a few days before lighting the first candle, Thursday night, the first candle of Hanukkah. And Hanukkah is a very special Jewish national liberation holiday. It's not just a holiday of light, a holiday of hope. It is fundamentally a national Jewish liberation holiday, which commemorates the Maccabees, who demonstrated that in order to gain independence, one must adhere to conviction and to reality and to truth, to Emet. And in many respects, Emet of today follows in the footsteps of the Maccabees compared to many other organizations who prefer convenience and conventional wisdom over Emet, over truth and reality. And one such case of the difference between convenience-driven individuals or organizations or policy and conviction-driven individuals, organizations, and policy is the case of the proposed Palestinian state. And I would like to share few of my acumen on this issue from the American point of view rather than from the Israeli point of view, because we have a reality whereby the State Department has been enamored with the proposed Palestinian state. For the State Department, the Palestinian issue is the crux of the Arab-Israeli conflict, a crown jewel of Arab policy making, and a core cause of regional instability, none of which has anything to do with reality. But the State Department is not in the business of following reality. The State Department is very busy formulating futuristic scenarios, which are subjective and highly speculative. For instance, there will be a two-state solution, claims the State Department, with two states living peacefully side by side. Well, I wish it would be true. I wish it would be true, as the State Department says, there will be a Palestinian state which will be peaceful and will pursue human rights and will advance the cause of democracy. Well, that reminds me of some of the colloquialism I remember from my days in Texas. I did my undergraduate in Texas. I served as Consul General of Israel in Texas. And in Texas, they say that you can put your boots in the oven, but that don't make them biscuit. Apparently, the State Department has not been to Texas and has not been enriched by Texas state of mind. And when it comes to the reality of the State Department, or the alternative reality of the State Department, one notices the vast contradiction, about 180, between the State Department view of a Palestinian state and the pro-American Arab stance on a Palestinian state. Because there was a joint Arab-Islamic summit in Riyadh on November 11. And during that joint summit, the Palestinians and the Iranians tried to push forward a resolution which forces an end to all diplomatic, economic, touristic, and military ties between Israel and Arab and Muslim countries. Well, the resolution was defeated by Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, Egypt, Jordan, and few other non-Arab Muslim countries. And the question is, how come? How come the State Department is eager, addicted to the idea of the proposed Palestinian state, but the Arabs, when they have a chance to demonstrate their position, not only don't they extend any assistance to Hamas, not only didn't they extend any assistance to the Palestinians during all conflicts between Israel and the Palestinians, whether it was PLO or Hamas, Israel's war against the PLO in Lebanon, the first Intifada, second Intifada, the several wars between Israel and Hamas, in none of them did the Arabs flex military muscle, very symbolic, minimal financial muscle, and the Arabs systematically have showered the Palestinians with embracing talk, but the walk has been anywhere between indifferent and negative. And the question is, how come? Well, the difference has to do between the State Department, which, as I mentioned before, bases its attitude towards the Palestinians and towards the idea of a Palestinian state on a subjective, speculative, futuristic scenario, and the Arabs, who base their attitude towards Palestinian on actual track record, and especially Palestinian track record in the intra-Arab sphere and in the global sphere, not towards Israel. And when Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and other pro-American Arab countries observe and study the Palestinian track record in the intra-Arab context, they cannot avoid but noticing that in the early 1950s, Egypt availed Gaza to the Palestinian leadership in order to terrorize Israel. After a few years, the Palestinians joined forces with Muslim Brotherhood terrorists in Egypt, terrorizing their host government. and they had to run away from Egypt to Syria. And Syria allowed them to terrorize Israel, and in 1966 they couldn't control themselves and started to terrorize Syrian intelligence officers. And they ran away to Jordan. Jordan enabled them to terrorize Israel between 68 and 1970. Some 250 Israelis were murdered by Palestinians, compliment of Jordanian hospitality of the Palestinians. But by September 1970, they attempted to take over control of Jordan, they wanted to topple the Hashemite regime, which triggered a civil war. At the end, they had to run away to Lebanon. For 5 years, they plundered southern Lebanon, and then they turned toward Beirut. And that triggered several civil wars in Lebanon until they were expelled from Lebanon in 1982. And then came the betrayal of Kuwait, which was the most generous Arab host of Palestinians, 400,000 of them, all of them, either relatives or allies of Arafat and Mahmoud Abbas. And in August of 1990, when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, those Palestinians who benefited from Kuwait's hospitality, and I would add, as expected, once again, turned against their host country and assisted the invasion of Saddam to Kuwait, and heralded Saddam's invasion not only in Kuwait, but also in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, and East Jerusalem, which was the reason for Sheikh Sabah of Kuwait, the leader of Kuwait, upon reinstalled complement of American blood and American military, the first thing he did was expelling almost 400,000 Palestinians from Kuwait. And the conclusion, the obvious one, the logical one, the humane one, by those pro-US Arab regimes has been that the Palestinians have become the role model of intra-Arab subversion and terrorism and treachery and ingratitude, and therefore a Palestinian state would only add fuel, not water, to the Middle East, threatening their own regimes in the various pro-American Arab countries. They also are aware that when you examine the track record of the Palestinians, you find out that they collaborated with Nazi Germany during Second World War, later on with the Soviet bloc, later on they were among the first one to embrace Ayatollah Khomeini when he toppled the Shah of Iran. They established and ran training camps in Lebanon, Tunisia, Sudan, and Yemen for Latin American terrorists, European terrorists, Asian terrorists, African terrorists, Middle Eastern terrorists. They have been very close allies of the Muslim Brotherhood terrorists, which is the largest Sunni terror organization. And until today, they have close ties with North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, and obviously pretty close to China and Russia. And when you add that track record in the intra-Arab sphere, global sphere, let alone the Israeli sphere with the hate education, with the monthly allowances to families of terrorists, with the incitement in mass, the profile of a future proposed Palestinian state becomes very, very obvious. And the Arab conclusion has been to refrain from any action advancing the establishment of a Palestinian state, but for talk. And as they say in the Middle East, on words one does not pay custom. So why not use that commodity as liberally as possible, but refrain from actual walk? Actually, we have seen a difference between the State Department on the one hand and the pro-American Arab countries on the other hand in the fashion that they welcome Palestinian Authority leaders. When Palestinian Authority leaders arrive to Washington or London or Paris or Rome, any Western country, they are received in a red carpet fashion. When they arrive to Arab countries, they are received in a shabby doormat fashion, which reflects exactly how Arabs feel about the Palestinians, contrary to the State Department. And extending a red carpet treatment by the State Department to the officials of the Palestinian Authority also leads me to reaffirm the assumption that they really need few more days, few more months in Texas, because in Texas they say, don't kiss chicken until they grow lips. Apparently, the State Department has ignored that advice and treats the Palestinian chicken as if they have already grown lips. Thank you very much, and happy Hanukkah, and may Emet and Sarah Stern continue to benefit from the spirit of Hanukkah and make a difference in the Jewish community activities with Capitol Hill and other target audiences. Thank you very much.